Okay, so we're going into year 4 for Connor McDavid. And of course, there's a lot of debate about is McDavid better than Crosby? Is Crosby better than McDavid? And I'm not really going to get into that now, but I'm going to discuss Connor McDavid going into year 4 and how solid is this kid and how much better could it get. So again, much like I did with Virtanen, I'm trying to use comparables. And unlike Virtanen, it's really hard to find comparables for Sidney Crosby. So what I've done here is he played 45 games, had 16 goals, 32 assists, 48 points in his first year with the Oilers, who finished with a 31, 43, and 8 record that year. Then last season he had 30 goals and 70 assists, and just this season he had 41 goals, 67 assists for 108 points, bringing his total to 256 points in 209 games. Now, there's people who say, well, the Oilers are a terrible franchise and they're never going to win anything, and I've heard this before. And I these are in no particular order. Okay, I intentionally put them on the board in no particular order because grading these guys will just make you tear your hair out. Gordie Howe, his first year, 22, 27, and 11 was the record of the Detroit Red Wings. He played 58 games, had 7 goals, 15 assists, 22 points. He's brought in slowly. This is original 6 year. He's brought in slowly. Second year, he plays all 60 games, 16 goals, 28 assists, 44 points. Year 3, 40 games, 12 goals, 35 assists, 37 points. So he's almost to a point per game, 103 points in 158 games. Gordie Howe won the Stanley Cup, his 4th year in the NHL. They reached the finals, his 3rd year in the NHL. So they were on their way. As soon as they got Gordie Howe, they were on their way. Now, there was a lot of things that went right for Detroit along the way, too. But, hey, Howe, a big part of them winning a Stanley Cup or 2 in his time there. Couple Stanley Cups, pretty big deal. Whatever. Gretzky, the first year that the Oilers played in the NHL. Now, remember, he had a year in the WHA before this. So Gretzky wasn't really a rookie, which is why he's not a Calder winner. Which is why he wasn't on the all-rookie team, which is why when I talk about draft picks, Gretzky's nowhere to be found. Because he belonged to the Edmonton Oilers after the Indianapolis Racers sold him to them. His first year in the NHL, 79 games played, 51 goals, 86 assists, 137 points. He loses the Art Ross to Marcel Dionne that year because Dionne had more goals. Points, they were the same. 80 games played the next year. There's no doubt in anybody's mind. 55 goals, 109 assists. That should be 164 points. So 164 points that following season for him. I'm going to do this one in pink just to show that, I put in the wrong number. 92 goals, 120 assists for a grand total of 212 points in year 3. So in 239 games played, he only misses 1 game over his first 3 seasons. He scores 513 points. It is an insane amount of points. It really is. It's the kind of points you might see on an EA NHL game now. We'll never see those kinds of point totals again. When the comparisons are made between these two, it kind of gives me a bit of an aneurysm because it's completely different eras, but Gretzky was the greatest player I ever saw. So that's just, he really was. And I didn't cheer for the Oilers, and I didn't cheer for Gretzky, but best player I ever saw. Now, Lemieux came in some years later. Oh, and Gretzky, they got the cup in year 5. They made the finals his 4th year. Mario Lemieux comes in, of course. Pittsburgh bottomed out so they could get Lemieux. Them and then the Devils had a fight over who was going to finish last and get him, and they won. 24, 51, and 5 record was the record for the Pittsburgh Penguins' first year there. 73 games played, 43 goals, 57 assists, 100 points. We knew what we were getting with him, a megastar. 78 games played in year 2, 48 goals, 93 assists, 141 points. Year 3, misses time with injury, 63 games played, 54 goals, 53 assists, 107 points, despite missing 17 games. He didn't break out, really, until the year after that. And think about it, he had 107 points and 54 goals, and I'm going, he didn't really break out until the year after, because that's when he really started putting up the Mario Lemieux numbers. Gretzky in his 3rd year had started putting up the Gretzky numbers. He had 250 in the year after that. But he really had become what we would be accustomed to for about a half a decade, and then eventually you can't score at that pace all the time, right? Bobby Orr. The Bruins had a 17, 43, and 10 record, which you all know because you watched this morning's history video that I posted. They had a cup in year 4. Lemieux had a cup in year 7. So a bit of a difference here. The Bruins had a little more to work with than the Penguins. His first year, he played 61 games, has 13 goals, 28 assists, 41 points. Because of how hard Orr plays the game and because of just his style, he has a hard time staying healthy for a full season. 46 games played in year 2, 11 goals, 20 assists, 31 points. Year 3, 67 games played, 21 goals, 43 assists, 64 points. And as stated, in year 4, Boston would win the Stanley Cup. When he got there, they didn't look anything like champions at all. Crosby. So now we're into Sidney Crosby here, who, of course, is the one everybody always compares him to. So I intentionally saved him for 5th, kind of, sort of. I actually wrote him on the board first, and then the rest kind of took place around it. 81 games played for him in his first year, 39 goals, 63 assists, 102 points. The Penguins were 22, 46, and 14. A very similar record to Lemieux's first year as a Penguin. But they turn it around fast. His second season, he has 36 goals, 84 points for 120 points. His third season, he has 72 points in 53 games. 24 of those points are goals, which brings him to a total of 294 points in 213 games. Now, going back to Orr, the 136 points in 174 games, I realize he's a defenseman, but he's considered to be one of the greatest players in history, so I threw him in here. Now, Crosby, he gets to the finals his 3rd year, and he wins the Stanley Cup in his 4th year. Guy Lafleur. And Guy Lafleur gets overshadowed in the 80s by Gretzky, and then quickly finds himself out of the league due to a disagreement between himself and Montreal staff, it would seem. But again, in the history videos, we'll eventually get there. Lafleur's first year plays 73 games, 29 goals, 35 assists, 64 points. Now, Montreal's 46, 16, and 16. Montreal didn't need Guy Lafleur. They robbed the California Seals of the #1 draft pick. Part of the reason the California Seals no longer exist. But Guy Lafleur is brought along somewhat slowly, considering it's Montreal, right? 70 games played, 28 goals, 27 assists, 55 points. His 3rd year, he gets 73 games played, 21 goals, 35 assists, 56 points. Now, they win the Cup in his 2nd year. He gets 8 goals on that run. Or no, 3 goals on that run. It was, how I was remembering, had 8 goals his 2nd year in the playoffs. But anyways, Guy Lafleur is not a main player for Montreal until after. And then he's a main player through one of the best dynasties in history. But again, the history videos will let you guys know about that. Marcel Dionne is the one that's interesting to me on this list. Detroit, his rookie year, has a 33, 35, and 10 record. They are ahead of almost everybody else on this board, minus Lafleur. And yet, in his rookie year, he plays 78 games, 28 goals, 49 assists, 77 points. Great rookie season. 77 games played in year 2, 40 goals, 50 assists, 90 points. 3rd year, 74 games played, 24 goals, 54 assists, 78 points. Marcel Dionne never wins a cup. Why is he on the board? Because Dionne was a guy who, if not for Gretzky in that dominant era, Dionne would be a guy we would talk about as one of the all-time greats who never won a Stanley Cup and dominated the era he played in. The big question mark really with Connor McDavid is twofold. One, is 108 points a high benchmark, or much like a majority of the guys on this board, is that going to be just a hint of what he can do? And the second question becomes, as the Oilers took a step back in his 3rd year from where they were in his 2nd year, do they take another step forward in year 4? And does this team win a Stanley Cup with him at the helm? Because the question mark for all Connor McDavid fans everywhere at some point in his career is going to be looking at other greats in the league and when they won their Stanley Cups. And I could have had Yzerman, Sakic, numerous others over the last 20, 30, 40 years. But I wanted to stick with the huge names in hockey and compare them to those guys. I could have had Bobby Hull on here too, I guess. But I wanted to just stick with just the basics and keep this video below 10 minutes. But hey, I'd be interested to know your thoughts. How does Connor McDavid rank among these guys? After 3 years, and where does he end up at the end of his career? Because that's the thing you're trying to project for the rest of his career. So I'd be interested to know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And again, I do view Connor currently as the best player in the league. But we'll see what happens this season. And we'll see if this guy, the only active guy on the board, has something to say about it during the regular season and then into another long playoff run. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.